That is literally a pain in the Want everyone to know I have to gavel. Do not mistake. All right. We will call this meeting to order. The Rockingham Planning Commission, September 10th, 2025, PM. We are in Greenland. And we will start with introductions. How about I start and we'll go around. I am Beth Thoreau. I am your chair. I come from Portsmouth. Robert Duguay from Kingston.
Glenn Koppelman, also from Kingston.
Al Davis from Hampstead. Peter Bretz from Portsmouth.
Annette Pettengill, RPC staff.
Doug,
Doug Marino, Brentwood.
Lucy Cushman Stratum.
let's go behind Doug and Lucy.
Doug Fenton, Brentwood.
And then we'll move.
Chef Croner, Northampton.
Jen Radman, the RPC.
Dennis Hebert, Newington.
Chris Cross, Newington.
Bob Dion, Greenland.
Dave Walker with RPC.
To
Tim Rich.
finish.
With RPC.
And Tim has a bit of an announcement to make, which some in the room know.
Do the folks on that.
Oh.
Oh, gosh, they're behind me. I can't even see them.
Brought the apple. Everybody gets an apple.
Everyone online, introduce yourself. Starting with Randy.
Oh, it's Andy Brubaker, Hampton Falls.
All right. That's
Yeah, Randy Bryan from Newcastle.
Randy and Andy.
I got two.
Randy and Andy, that's good.
And-
Watson, New Hampshire DOT.
And Bill and Jack. All right. Jack's there, but he's not talking.
Okay.
Yeah.
Take it away.
Take it away. Well, I get to inform, it's funny, most of the people in the room actually know, but for those of you that don't, this will be my last RPC commission meeting. As the executive director, I'm moving on to take the Stratham Town Administrator position. Last day, October 3rd. Yeah, it's been a really wonderful experience. Sitting at the front of this organization. I feel like we've come a long way, and I'm not gonna take credit for that. I only have 2 staff people here, but
Three.
I would, 3. Oh, and that I should.
Oh.
Try that
with
Karen.
I know, right? No, really, this staff has really been the glue that holds the place together. And the director is just a small part of that, but I'll miss it. I'll miss the office, miss the people, I'll miss you guys, and won't be far away, and I'll still see Lucy all the time.
Lucky me.
Congratulations, Tip. Thanks.
And thank you.
Let's take what?
I chose to start the meeting with the bad news because we actually have a little bit of good news. For those that aren't aware in this room, there is a staff member who has spent 40 years working for the Rockingham Planning Commission. We wanted.
And it's not Tim.
Really hard time. We wanted to honor this lovely lady who has put so much into the organization. I have left this back out. It's bad. It's a net education note, not anything else.
The one I forgot.
The one she, yeah, how could we forget? And since it's so hard to get there, I'm gonna ask everyone to pass it down to them. We would like you to have a lovely, can I just tell it, it'd probably be easier. We've given you enough gift cards to have a lovely weekend away, a spa weekend at the Wentworth
Oh, my
by the
goodness.
Sea Hotel. So hopefully you'll have dinner and a weekend away and some spa treatments. They go to any service at the hotel. You can use it on whatever you want.
Oh, thank you so much. I did start here when I was 7.
Tell everyone when they're signing your.
Well, that isn't far from the truth.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And like Tim says, it's the people that have always kept me there.
Well, so now that I know what the gift is, I should let you know, this is actually my 40th year also.
You're not even 40 years old.
Notice everybody's laughing.
I'm actually 76.
Good try, good try. All right,
This
well,
is what 76 looks like. You go, girl.
and that we do all appreciate all you do. That pen was with it. That's why we've been giving it. Well, I want to tell you.
All right.
We do appreciate all you do, and I know he's moving on, but don't worry. RPC will be okay.
I know.
I've got.
And I
whole
know
group-
where he'll be. Yeah.
Oh, I say bug him all you want after he leaves.
That,
In fact, can I tell him the other thing you've offered to do?
Oh, sure.
He's already offered to be on the board of the foundation
Oh,
as a volunteer, so
Excellent.
see, now you're roped in. You say one thing to me, I'm gonna take it. All right, I guess we will get started with actual meeting now. We have the minutes of June 11th, 2025. Is there a motion to approve? Dennis,
Second.
Peter second, and is there any discussion, changes, updates, or questions? None, I will call the vote. All those in favor?
I,
Any opposed? All right, the minutes pass. We are now moving on to the 2025 State of Housing in the RPC region. I believe there is some staff members that are going to give us quite a show.
Before we get going, my pen seemed to go with the list.
Yeah, look with the list all the way around. We were all passing it.
Do I have it? No, no.
I mean, if you-
Thank you.
wondered how I ended up with a new pen. Did you get your other one back? No, easy. Oh, thanks. Well, I think.
If you're gonna look at that. Well, you all kind of forced it here.
I'm gonna back it over. There we go.
All right. They're shutting down.
I know where his lives. No heck, right?
Do you want my?
No, I'm good.
I changed. You need it, you let me know. Get out of the way.
All right, so I think everybody in here knows me, but I'm Jen Rowden. I'm the Land Use Program Manager here at RPC. And this is the state of housing in the region. So last year, I gave a very similar talk. And that talk included basically about 2 years worth of work. So this is not quite as big as last year, but there's been some interesting things that have happened related to housing in the state and the region and in our communities in the past 12 months. So just a quick refresher, in 2023, RPC released our regional housing needs assessment. It covered a lot of data. We discussed how different issues impact housing. But one of the things that people really focused on at the regional level and the state level were the numbers at the bottom. That by 2025, our region needed over 5,000 more housing units to meet basic demand and projections. And a little over 14,000 by 2040. So just keep those numbers in mind because we're going to come back to them. That was the projection. Projections are not perfect. They are probably not realistic, but this is the best single numbers I can give to you on our regional scale and state scale. So what's happened in the last year? We have continued with a lot of the housing opportunity grants. Some of the communities in here have received them. Hampstead, Brentwood in the past has gotten them. We've worked with about half of our communities, have received Portsmouth housing opportunity grants. Some have concluded, some are ongoing. The Housing Champion Program, which is a state program, opened. A couple of our communities have been designated, Portsmouth and Salem. We had a lot of legislative activity, and I bet some of you provided testimony or letters to the state on some of that housing legislation. We also had the state budget that got involved with housing issues as well. A number of our communities began working on regulations. So we're sort of starting to see progress in that direction. And then I'm going to kind of talk about going forward. Where do we go from here? So quick HOP grant, housing opportunity grant. This is money that started in the summer of 2022 to assist municipalities to basically do land use regulations and public engagement related to housing. That could be planning efforts, it could be outreach, it could be regulations. At this point, we are doing a combination with some of our communities of regulation enactment and public engagement. But the first wave of it was really that public engagement component and the needs assessments that we worked with. So we have at this point worked with about half of the RPC communities. A few more have also gotten housing grants and they've done some of their work with other consulting firms. So what we've gotten out of those top grants has been, since June of 2023, 12 community surveys, 28 public engagement sessions, 1 build-out analysis, local housing needs assessments that have been completed and 2 are ongoing in Hampton Falls and in Hampstead. We have done 6 master plan chapters, completed 7 regulatory audits with 2 more in the works for Hampstead and Hampton Falls. We have also begun working on a number of regulations. Most notably, Hampton is our one COP grant that continued with some housing related regulations. So a lot of work has been done related in the region on housing, using state funds through this housing opportunity grant. And that none of those numbers captured the towns we didn't directly work with. Portsmouth has done a lot, Brentwood has done a lot, Salem has done a lot, Seabrook has done a lot. There's been a lot of other work done. So the state started on the Housing Champion program. I'd just like to note this because it's intended so that if your community meets certain parameters that basically mean that make it housing friendly, it's kind of the easiest way to explain it, you then are given access to additional branch dollars that help enable more housing or infrastructure improvements. It's basically carrot. Fill out the application, become a designated housing champion, and you become eligible. We've had 2 communities in our region become housing champions, being Salem and Portsmouth. That got approved in 2024.
And you get a plaque.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
It hangs under the city hall.
Nice. Once awarded for 3 years, and you have to keep up with that designation, but when there are grant funds, and there are 2 granting funds, one is housing production grants and then housing infrastructure grants. That becomes available. So to date, $5 million has been awarded. Only Salem in our region has been awarded any money. They got about $1 million between the 2 different housing grants that they were eligible for. One allowed for extension of a water line to 10 existing homes, single family homes, and extended those water lines so that the golf course in Salem could at some point be developed into between 50 and 75 housing units. There is no current proposal to actually do that development. You know, so some good infrastructure work has been done. It's $1 million. It doesn't get you very far. In May of 2025, Hampton and Rye both submitted applications. RPC helped both of those communities with some of the HUP grant funds they had received to submit those applications. They have not heard anything back, so we don't know the status of what their applications are. So we're waiting to hear. 2025 state budgets. This comes really into play. So what is in and what is out related to housing? I'm not covering every nuance of housing, but these are the major ones. The Affordable Housing Fund, low-cost loans and grants facilitate below market rate housing. There's $10 million. So that actually got a decrease, but there's still money. Shelter contracts to help with 13 emergency shelters around the state. In our region, there are only 2. That remains consistent funding levels. CDFA, Community Development Finance Authority tax credits. No funding change, so that's staying steady. We have actually used CDFA funds to help do some housing work. I'll get to that in a minute. And there was also funding put towards DES and DOT to help with permitting. They are now required to turn around permits within 60 days. That intent was really to help ensure that building wasn't getting hung up with those state permits, which often have been blamed for right or wrong with holding up development. What is out? The Invest in Hampshire Housing Opportunity Grants, no funding. Program still exists, but there's no more funding. It runs out in September 2026. The Housing Champion Program, not funded. The Housing Appeals Board, which, while sometimes considered controversial, has lost one of its staff positions. So now it's gone from a staff of 3 to a staff of 2. It'll be interesting to see how they're able to make decisions with only a staff of 2. Lastly, the regional planning commissions used to share $100,000 between the 9 of us, so that's that $11,111.11 that Tim has harped on his tenure here. Not funded. We use that to help do a variety of things, but technical assistance, sometimes related to housing, was something that we use those funds for. So you should have, if you grabbed documents or saw it in the email that Tim had sent out, we have developed a summary of planning and zoning zoning laws that passed this year. Most of them are housing related or they're planning and zoning related. I'm not going to go into all of them, but I'm going to highlight a couple of them. And the links to all of these are also in the emails versions that came out. So House Bill 457. This was a law that was really aimed at some of the college towns that basically makes it that you can't enforce or adopt occupancy limits on dwellings with fewer than 2 occupants per bedroom. The intent was to not have communities have prohibitions of people sharing occupancy, and which was largely a problem out of Durham, but somewhat of the Plymouth sort of Keene area. That's really what it was aimed for. Not really applicable to most of our communities. Senate Bill 284. This is a big one in the fact that it now makes it so the maximum number of on-site parking requirements you can have for any residential unit is 1. This was a change from Concord amendments in the previous year, which basically made it for 1.5 for most situations. So if you have parking restrictions for on-site, you are limited to 1. Many of our communities are needing to amend their residential parking requirements to downgrade that. It's a fairly simple zoning change, sometimes site plan subdivision. Next, there's House Bill 631. I was talking with folks from Newington who feel that this bill really was aimed at Newington specifically. But it does apply to a couple of our other communities that if you have a commercially zoned area, not industrial, but commercial, that allows things like offices and retail. Now, by right, you have to allow multifamily. There's some caveats with you have to have the right infrastructure capacity and road capacity, but that's the basic idea of it. Then the last one that has caused, I will say, the most fizzy, whether you agree with it or not, but the most flutter from my email box at least, is House Bill 577, which mandates that every single family home in New Hampshire is allowed by rights an accessory dwelling. We don't talk about attached or detached. They're just accessory dwellings. There's a lot of other caveats to that. You can have them bigger. You can allow more than one if you want to. You can allow non-conforming to have more than one. But it's the ADU by right that has caught a lot of towns. Most of our towns did not allow detached accessory dwellings. Only 1 allowed more than 2 accessory dwellings. Most are kind of heading in that direction. There's a few that have maybe some nuanced language that they might be considering to say, well, maybe if this situation arises, we might allow more than 1. But at this point, I think I have worked with at least half the towns to amend or start to amend accessory dwelling regulations because that state law went into effect on July 1. So many of our local regulations have not caught up and won't even be able to until March. But you still have to follow the new law. So this brings me to a question. We've done all this work on housing. Still an issue? So this is a question we asked when we launched our regional master plan survey, which I know all of you took, or at least 900 people in our region took, where we asked what are issues that need attention in the region. Top 3. Housing was number 1, just followed by loss of rural character. I can tell you that is not a result that I didn't expect. Those are always the top 2. And they sometimes play against each other. In the news every day, some sort of housing. This development is occurring. This proposal is being put out. This money is being put towards it. This poll has come out. This is a statewide poll. But housing continues to be very high as a concern. But zoning seems to be the scapegoat sometimes. Zoning will fix all of the problems. It won't fix all the problems. We can do something about zoning. We can change things. But it's not going to fix all the problems. So this is a slide I had from last year. What is holding up housing? Infrastructure, availability and capacity, zoning, local approvals, financing, construction costs. All still there. None of this is easily fixed. When we do planning and zoning and policy and data and public engagement, those start to get it. Zoning regulations and local approvals, we can shift that. But that alone isn't gonna solve the problem, but that's the only place that we have direct influence. I guess in some aspects infrastructure, but. So what are communities in our region doing or not? We continue to have communities that are wanting to do community engagement and planning efforts. Some of them are because they have active HOP grants right now. Hampton Falls and Hampstead are my two communities that have the most engagement going on. I'm working with Hampton on a set of regulations to increase housing opportunities. They continue to have engagement. They have some funding. Some of our communities that did not receive either initial or second HOP grants to really continue that engagement, it has stalled. They might have interest in doing it, but they don't have any support. Or if I happen to be the circuit rider in that town, I can keep talking to them on a limited degree. I can't have public engagement after public engagement or reports or surveys or maintain websites to do that. The capacity has become limited. We are working on regulation amendments based on some of that previous engagement and planning efforts. Examples include Hampton. Hampton, we have worked on an inclusionary housing, making it just a permitted use wherever residential is allowed. We are also considering a cottage court regulation in Hampton. They are also amending their accessory dwelling and working on a workforce housing regulation. So Hampton is, as far as towns that RPC is directly working with, definitely become the leader of the pack. Just because of where they were with planning and the support that they have gotten. Some of it has to do with RPC, some of it is just where they were. Rye is in a similar position. They are considering changes to their accessory dwelling, expanding some of their multifamily, and also considering a cottage court regulation. They may eventually get to a workforce housing regulation, but they're not quite there. East Kingston, Little East Kingston, it's 2,000 people. They're considering with their accessory dwelling regulation, putting in a conditional use permit for when they might allow more than one, or when they might allow something that's bigger, because they have big pieces of property. And in some cases, they have the capacity. It's all going to be septic based. They don't want it to impact the characteristic of their town, but there might be situations that they realize, hey, that might still be okay without negatively impacting the characteristics of our town. And we can support that level with our existing infrastructure or lack thereof. I just like to bring them up because they're a little guy. They're not our bigger communities. Portsmouth continues to do things. I was asking Peter at the beginning before the meeting started how many co-housing applications they've gotten. It's more than I had realized because Portsmouth changed their regulations to allow co-housing. That probably isn't the best fit for a lot of our communities, but some of them, it does make sense in certain places. Salem is also working on a number of regulations that address housing. They're little bits here and there, but they do have cumulative impact in expanding opportunity. Doesn't mean it's going to be built, but you're expanding the option should it fit in some situations. For all those parameters of the infrastructure, the local regulations, the costs and the financing. So what we are specifically working on a lot is amending those accessory dwelling ordinances because I think with exception of Fremont and Danville, all of our communities have accessory dwelling regulations that do not meet the state law verbatim and where they need to be. Some have to shift more than others, but it was a pretty monumental change, whether you agree with it or not. Parking regulations, we're working on that in many of our communities, and for where it's applicable, the multifamily use in commercial zones. I'm again looking at the Newington folks because it was largely aimed at Newington, but it's applicable in most communities.
You did it. Thank you.
Don't quote me. I have nothing to do with it.
I'm recording it.
Me too. So going forward, what are we doing and how are we doing it and what's paying for it? Through the end of November, we have some funding through the Community Development Finance Authority to specifically work on housing regulations in Hampton. With Hampton, we've been able to get a number of grants to support housing work, which is one of the reasons we have specifically been working with them really directly. There is the possibility of future grants that really are targeted towards housing through that funding source. It's not huge money, but it can get you somewhere. We are continuing with the Portsmouth Shipyard Joint Land Use Study. This is phase 4, to work with Southern Maine Planning and Development Corp and Stratford Regional Planning Commission to advance things that impact shipyard, very specifically transportation, housing, and climate impacts. One of the things that is paying for it is for me to be able to do the state of housing, to basically communicate information to our commissioners. We have done some technical assistance with some of our communities. And we're also developing a cluster subdivision model ordinance. It is not an open space ordinance. It is not a cottage court. It's something in between. We have gotten conversations with Cooperative Extension and other conservation folks saying a lot of our towns aren't using conservation subdivisions. The aim of preserving that open space, which almost every town says we prioritize, combined with the need for housing. How do we make it so that we're preserving things, because that is a good community goal for a lot of reasons, while also meeting this other need. So we've been, Maddie and I specifically have been coordinating with some of, especially Cooperative Extension folks, to sort of target how do we balance that with something more compact that still preserves some open space for wildlife and recreation and access and just natural areas. So that's kind of what we're working on. We'll probably be presenting that in the next couple of months to the commission, because I think it's going to work for a lot of towns because it's written really flexibly. But we had support to be able to do that kind of drafting. Possible of phase 5 from Department of Defense of this study. It's a possibility. We haven't gotten any formal word about that. But I do want to point out there's an article that just came out earlier today about the economic impact that the shipyard actually has in our region. And in New Hampshire, it is $285 million in wages that are brought into the state because of that shipyard. Well, to be able to have that many the workers need to have some place to live, and people are coming from as far away as Salem and down in Massachusetts and up in Sanford, Maine. You know, that's a big catchment. But where they're coming from is largely the less expensive communities because of some of the jobs that are at the shipyard. They're not as high paid. They pay well, but they're not as high paid. All right, we are continuing with Invest New Hampshire Housing Opportunity Grants. We currently have grants active that go through September 2026 with Sandown, Rye, Hampton, Hampton Falls, and Hampstead. So we're gonna get as much out of those dollars as we can to help those communities. And then we can probably replicate it for other communities. Do you want to put a nod to, we have some funding from the county, just new and novel. This is replacing that $11,111. We actually use some of that funding to produce this summary. It's not a lot of money, but we will leverage every dollar to the maximum that we can to help our communities as best we can. That seemed like a good use of those funds. All right, this is my last going forward. We are still working on our regional master plan update. It has stalled a little bit because of staff capacity, and that's mainly me. But that does include funding that we have to do implementation of our regional housing needs assessment, which is pretty cool. We're going to continue to do that. So we have some regional housing work we can continue to do with those funds. But I want to point out that there's a state mandate. The regional planning commissions every 5 years do a regional housing needs assessment. So that means we need to have another one in 2028. That means we need to be doing the work in 2027. That means we need to have funding start to be discussed and allocated in 2026. I go back to the state budget and where a lot of the funding has been yanked. To get some of this housing need, because there is a need of housing. How and where and when are all things we've got to talk about, but there's a need for housing. How can you get good housing if you don't have good plans and good data and good public engagement? So that's our legal mandate. We'll see if we're able to do it. We did the last one using federal funding that was acquired. HUD, yes, HUD.
It's related to COVID funds, I think.
Alright, go to bed. So I come back to that number I shared at the beginning. Where we need over 5,000 more by 2025, or, 14,500 by 2040. The Office of Planning and Development does a current estimates and trends of New Hampshire housing supply every year. They have not come out with 2025 yet. They'll probably do that in the next couple of months. So updated 2024, you'll see that permitted between 20 and 2023. So permitted generally means it got built. Someone pulled a building permit for it. Over 3,000 new housing units were built, 3,200. The numbers that I have at the top, those were based off of 2020 estimates, so they did go out 5 years. Well, the estimated need for that time period is 5,352. I don't think we're gonna get there. We're just not gonna get to that number that's, flawed. It is flawed numbers, probably not realistic, but it takes a long time to have housing be built because of all of the planning and the permitting and the efforts that go before it. So if we want good housing, if the need is more housing, we want to have good plans and we want to have good data, but we have to be able to do that work. So that's kind of my message. I'm calling this my TED Talk. I don't know how to solve this, but I know that our communities really don't like it when they're forced to do this. And I know that we can't support housing without good plans to be able to have the right infrastructure and the public engagement and the look and feel. Because when it comes, all the conversations I've had about housing with people, it's really how it impacts the people that live there. And it's the look and feel. You might understand the sewer capacity or the septic. Or what does it look like? How's it going to impact me and the characteristics of the town that I really value? Right. That's what I got.
Go right ahead.
Do you have a question?
Gonna make a nasty comment, but please go ahead.
I'm not gonna make a nasty comment. I have thought while you're talking, the 2028 regional housing assessment. I think we need to put together a package to go back to the county and ask them to fund that. Because if we could tailor it to saying that we're trying to create more housing, especially for seniors, because what they really like to fund are things that keep people out of the Rockingham County nursing house there. And if we could put together a plan on how, if they funded us, we could work towards that. I mentioned we get the money, just a thought, and put a bug in your ear. Now that they've given us money once, let's go back and ask for more.
I do want to say when we did the 2023, some of you might remember, it was all the planning commissions working together. And while, working together had its, we were all working from the same data. So it was all able to be replicated. We didn't get into the, well, how did you collect it? And how did they collect it? And what did you? So that had some merit to do. It was an economy of scale to a degree. So
That was the one prior to the most recent.
this is the most recent.
Most recent. Are there any other questions, comments?
I have a question. So the slide before the last slide. No, I'm sorry. That one. So in the communities where there's less of a disparity between the permitting and the projected need, what are the factors that contribute to sort of narrowing that gap?
Well, so in some of them, there may simply have been a number or a single larger development that happened to go in because that covers some pre-COVID to a degree. The projections included also the fact that there is not a high vacancy rate available for rentals. So it did project out that there would be, for having a 5% rental vacancy across the state, so across evenly, proportionately across the communities. It also factored in having a 6-month inventory of homes for sale. So that in itself elevates the numbers to a degree. Yeah, there's some other things, but those are the main aspects.
6 months.
Yeah,
Homes for
6
sale.
months is considered healthy. And we've been at some points less than a week of inventory if no more houses came on the market. So, and at one point we were at under 0.1% for rental vacancies.
You have a question?
Early on, you had a couple slides, or one slide that showed a couple figures of big numbers of infrastructure. Is that money still available for housing, or is it?
Nope.
Gone?
It's gone. It's already been allocated to the housing champion. So, while Portsmouth, as you've been designated, that designation states good for a year. There is sort of a renewal process.
Yeah. But there's no more money.
But there's no more money. The program still exists, the state law still exists, the administrative rules still exist,
But there's
but there's.
Give a plaque. Well, I'm not complaining about, right? I'm not
No,
complaining.
you could get a plaque.
Don't
Maybe
be
we
made
could
of
solve
gold.
it.
It's not. Other questions, Dennis?
Yeah, I noticed the years that you said were, usually we should be going to, and we go back to that same chart.
And I'm also happy to send the link to that reference as well.
So those years, 2020, 23, 2020, 24. We've lost 3 years in there for COVID. It was just shot. How can you say that's a normal progression in housing units that are going to build? And I think it's when they're showing to people who are looking at passing bills, looking at that, saying we have a shortage, when actually things weren't getting built because we're all locked in. And for all practical purposes, I mean, people are locked in a house sometimes making babies. More people that we're gonna take care of.
Yourself. Some of us were working 14 hours a day.
Some of us were, right. But you understand what I'm saying? I don't think the figures can really show the true representation as what is trying to be built versus what could be built.
Oh, I'll give you, this is just a snapshot of a single data point. This doesn't tell the whole story. But I will also tell you that you can't make good planning decisions unless you have some good data.
All right, but I'm saying the data is skewed in the sense that we couldn't do anything for 2 or 3 years at all. And I think that's a pretty good, if you normalized it and divided it, took those 2 years out of there, you probably would see that per year, we did a pretty good job.
Well, I'm happy to bring a longer data. View.
I'm just asking, because you're the data collector, and I'm just saying, just please take that into consideration, especially especially when representatives are looking to pass bills, forcing towns to do things, if things aren't really showing the true what was going on in the world.
Go ahead.
The run rate on this, if you add the fourth year, which would be next year, 2024, we get that data, would bring this at a 79% achievement rate. Okay, so I was in corporate America for a long time. If we were getting 80% of plan, we were pretty pleased with that most of the time, because that plan had a 20% fudge factor on our bottom line every year. So I think we have to calibrate that expectation that given what he just said, I think it will be interesting as we see the next 3 to 4 years, whether we see a little bit of a catch up to this, which I think there's still potential in the next 4 years to do better, because I think there's a lot more activity going on across the region as far as building goes.
I will say that one of the pieces of information we had last year when I gave this talk was we had an intern go through the meeting minutes of every single planning board in our region to see how many residential units got conditionally approved or over about an 18-month period. Now, conditional approval does not mean it gets built. Anecdotally, it seems that less than half that have been approved have gotten built ultimately, and they might still get built. I mean, there can certainly be a lag. But that pipeline of policy and plans and infrastructure and approvals and building takes years. So you're both right that this single snapshot does not tell the whole story. We need a longer data set. But I think the point is still there that there's a housing need. We gotta figure out what we're gonna do about it.
Agreed. Any other questions or comments? Go ahead. That should be nice though.
Sure.
This is always nice.
There,
I think these charts show that housing takes planning. It has a lot of factors that need to be considered, and therefore it takes time. And negotiation with communities, people. It doesn't happen overnight. Okay. Unless. If money comes, anything's possible on it, as we all know, but it's limited. But where does the need for housing comes from? It comes because somebody has a job in the area. Where do those jobs come from? They come out of the blue from politicians that just spend money and create jobs. Those are government jobs. Businesses create jobs. All they need to do is put out a sheet on Indeed or something and say there's a job, okay? It's very easy to create jobs. And the people that create the jobs are not concerned about creating housing. Yes, they would like to have housing available. They would like to be low cost, so they don't have to pay the people they hire for these jobs. We have the federal government in the shipyard. We have a state government with the trade port, okay, and other locations all around the state. They're just creating jobs. They do nothing to create housing, absolutely nothing, but they create the demand. It's on the communities that have to come up with this. And the complaint is that we spend time assessing, figuring out how to do this. We have a rule in our community. Those that benefit from a change ought to pay or provide the fruits that that make something happen. So if you're going to build a development, there's costs for infrastructure or adjustments to transportation, other things. It's a liable cost that should be in it. But the people creating these jobs are doing very little of a few planning grants to actually create that housing that that their job edicts are creating. Don't know how to solve that, but there's a dilemma, and there's two different groups, and the groups are those that are creating the jobs and think the housing that their workers need comes for free. That makes all the communities, cities, towns, the bad people, because they're not doing their job and providing the need that is projected because of the jobs they're creating.
You reminded me of one last point I'm gonna make between the state budget and what was allocated and the laws that were passed. For the most part, the state put very little money where its mouth is. No matter what your opinion on housing and how it should be dealt with, state didn't put a lot of money towards doing anything about it. They shifted a lot of things onto the communities with very little resources to be able to act. So.
Theme of the evening, I believe.
We're just, in our community, we're trying to get the private sector to step up, getting Service Credit Union to take land they own, and they're in the planning process of creating affordable housing on 28 acres. That it should be a huge boost, but it's hard to get the private sector. The Chamber Collaborative has been trying to urge all of the private, businesses to find a way to help in that direction. So it's not an unheard of conversation that you go to the private sector, try to ask that stuff up as well.
But I'm gonna have hold on my back since it's my last meeting. What Jen was saying is, that's the theme of the lack of funding, the lack of resources to support the need and the rules that we put in place. If you listen to Dave, you can hear similar thing. So it's a transition.
That's a really good transition to the MPO business that we need to get going on.
I heard from the folks on Zoom that we were having trouble with the slides advancing or them not being able to see them. So if anyone on Zoom wants to describe what was going on, we'll try to fix it.
We'll work on it for the next one. There.
Yeah, and I'll also send the slide deck around if folks wanna reference it.
Okay, you were very brave to get up there and to attack Newell's. Thank you very much.
I didn't. She did not attack, she just simply stated a fact.
Right, so, while they're doing that, one thing I would like to say is last round of bills that were being passed, a lot of them was changed at the very last minute when you didn't think it applied to your town, and then it does. And there's no time to react. Getting the representatives to even come to your town when they do that kind of thing doesn't work. They look at the big cities and the small towns around it are the ones who get no representation. And that's what's going on in the state right now. And that's what's really, I think, pissing off a lot of towns, because it's the big cities that are getting attention. And Beth, you can look right at me, you don't have to look away. I mean, it's.
No, I'm trying to open one of the two documents.
So it's, I really think that
I'm listening to you.
I really think that we got a problem here with the upper way, what the citizens are saying, if you don't live in the city, so. We couldn't even get them to address emails or letters we sent them, nothing. Empty.
I don't think it's all about six, but that's my last word.
All right, so. We're trying to share.
I will share, we're ready to move on to that. Amendment.
Yeah, 2025-2028 tip amendment number 2.
And Bill or Jack or somebody, if you don't see what you need to see, just speak up on Zoom and we'll try to correct it.
Will do. You see the amendment 2, Bill?
We do, and it looks better than the previous presentation. Can you just advance the slide, Dave, just for a second?
It just advanced it, did it work?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Excellent. That's what we like to hear. Okay. All right.
Now it's the Dave Walker show.
Now, yes, you can listen to me for the next 45 minutes. Try to be brief as well as I can. So 2025 to 2028 Transportation Improvement Program, this is amendment 2 that we're talking about. This is a smaller amendment than we dealt with in amendment 1. There's only 6 projects, actually 7 projects that we've got on this. I got to update this slide this afternoon. We had 4 of those projects are regional projects, actually 5 now that we have new numbers, and 2 of them are statewide projects, the statewide programs that are being adjusted. We had a public comment period that ended on Monday. The only comment we received, and we actually received this yesterday, was NHDOT requesting addition of one of the Newington Dover projects to be added into this amendment. So we need to consider that as part of this. This is considered a public hearing, so we will take any sort of public comment that's available at this point. So I'm going to just go through the different types of project changes that we're seeing. The first is new projects that are being added into the TIP. These aren't necessarily new projects overall, but they didn't have funding between 2025 and 2028. And so they weren't showing up in the TIP. First is this bike shoulder project in Newcastle. So the money is just being added to the TIP to continue with this project. I think the intention initially was that this was done ahead of time. This was done before 2025, but it's done. So that's happening. The other one is the project I mentioned that DOT wants to add into this revision. This is part of the Newington Dover project, and they're adding $400,000 in to do some more engineering work in preparation for releasing the project to go bid. So that's why the money is needed in 2020. I believe it's being added.
Is that to tear down the bridge in Newington?
That's part of that. This project isn't specifically, but this project handles a lot of the engineering for the overall project, including the tear down.
And were they including anything to include like water connection between Dover and Portsmouth?
They do not bid.
Get out of
Bill is on. He may have some more information, and we can get back to that. I'll go through all the projects.
Because they were looking at doing something like that. They did it on.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure. So the remaining projects are all projects where there are funding and or schedule changes that are occurring. We have another one of the Newington Dover projects, the T project, which is the new superstructure that'll be built once the old one is torn down on the General Sullivan Bridge. So it's actually decreasing in cost slightly in the short term and increasing overall. And And it's basically just the project timeframes are being adjusted slightly to reflect the design schedule that's ongoing right now. So it's basically happening a little bit slower than they anticipated, so they shifted the money outward a bit. Portsmouth 20258, this is the Pemberley Hill Road project that the city is doing. And that's just adding some additional funding to reflect the current design schedule and the most recent cost estimate. The Portsmouth 44358. This project is actually just having a change in the scope description. So it's just, that's in the information that I sent out before. It shows you both the before and after, but this is the new scope that's listed here. And then finally, the two statewide programs. First is the FTA 5310 program. This is the mobility management capital program for senior services, folks with disabilities. So that's increasing by $3 million overall, just over $3 million overall, and that's really reflecting the actual funding allocations from FTA as opposed to when it was put in the TIF initially. It was reflecting the expected FTA allocations. And so we have the actual fund. We know how much it's actually coming to the state now. So that's being incorporated into this. And then finally, and this accounts for most of the cost change that we're seeing in our TIF, the PAVE T3, T4 resurfacing program. So this is, we're resurfacing on tier 3 and tier 4 roadways around the state is increasing by $37.5 million in the TIP years and $155 million overall. So basically this program runs out through the end of the 10-year plan. And so DOT is adding a large chunk of money to facilitate additional paving work going forward. So two things that we always have to talk about when we talk about amendments are physical constraint and air quality conformity. Air quality conformity is the easy one. This is a paperwork exercise. We rely on our previous analyses that we've done in the past because we're sort of quasi-contained area. It really is just us checking a box and saying that we've addressed it. DOT provides documentation that indicates that physical constraint is maintained, and that is that we're not proposing to spend more money than we think will be available in the next 4 years. So even though we are seeing a net funding increase in the TIP, that is still within the funding that was available to the state. And the majority, again, of that funding increase is through that paving program. So, I'll just read through this last bit and then we can maybe take any comments and questions after that. And maybe, I don't know if Bill has anything to share on the Newington Dover project and Dennis's comments about the water lines. But at our TAC meeting last month, the TAC did endorse the changes and recommend approval to the MPO. In between then and now, DOT requested the addition of that Newington Dover 11238 project to the amendment. So that's something that the TAC didn't see, but I think that's perfectly acceptable for us to incorporate into the amendment. So ideally, I'm looking for the MPO policy committee to approve the project changes included in TIF Amendment 2 as presented tonight. And then maybe what I'll do is I'll stop the share and we'll see if Bill has any thoughts on any information on the Newington Dover that he can share.
You want a motion first, okay?
Yeah, we could do a motion first.
Can we have a motion to approve the TIP amendments as presented?
So much.
Glenn, Robin, thank you. Any more discussion on what is presented? Yep, I'll call the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Got your amendments.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you. Bill, I don't know if you had any further information about what's being considered, and as far as utilities running across the new General Sullivan.
I was going to ask, what has the conversation been so far with the project manager? Because I am not up to date, but I'm curious as to what the initial conversation has been, if there's been any.
I haven't had a conversation with the project manager. I don't know if maybe Tim has it all, but Tim.
There was water proposed to the rest of Dover to.
It was supposed to be an emergency line so that if Dover or Portsmouth had issues with their water system, you could share from the other community. That was the purpose of it originally.
I know that cost was too high
To do it.
to do it initially, so we're looking at options.
Okay, so there's a high cost, but they're looking at different options. Okay.
And it was just for emergencies. This was not for regular.
Or,
Yeah.
So I can bring that back to the project manager tomorrow. Mike Moser has recently taken over that project. Mike was the person that came in at the last minute and asked for consideration of the additional PE money. The money, so the improvement, the approval, excuse me, it's been a long day, that you just made for the 11238 project is for additional design money so that we can complete the construction, or complete the design for the construction of the 11238T project. All PE and right-of-way costs, all engineering and right-of-way costs for the entire Newington Dover project has been charged against that 11238 project for decades, many years. And so the additional change tonight is to get through that final design process. I would imagine that's including looking at that water connection that you're asking about, but I can confirm that with Mike tomorrow and get back to you through Dave to all of you with an answer.
Great, thank you.
thanks, Bill. Appreciate that.
All right, I think we're moving on to the 10-year plan update.
Right on.
Yeah, I have my list. I can keep track.
That's it. Another presentation for everybody's enjoyment. So this will get back to the theme of the evening, as Tim mentioned, and that's, nothing, not intended as a slight against DOT or anything. Because I know they're working within the constraints that the legislature has put upon them. Okay, can folks on Zoom see the slide that starts with the good heading?
Right now, we see the rpc.org desktop.
Okay,
So you can see it.
all right, let's try.
It's not, they're talking about it.
And that is good news if we stick with the rpc.org logo. That's okay.
All right, so if I can figure out how to actually work Zoom, I think after how many years is working on Zoom, we would. Should work.
I can't help you on that.
All right, how's that, Bill?
Awesome.
Excellent. All right, well, let me know if it doesn't advance. I'm just started in here. So. Stuff on my screen so that I can see what we're talking about here. All right, so we're talking about the 10-year plan process and the changes that are occurring with the new draft. And they're fairly extensive. But I thought, and Bob and Jeff, you've seen this already. This is not unchanged from the TAC meeting a couple weeks ago. But so we'll just start off with some of the good things that we're seeing as part of the 10-year plan program. Pavement and bridges. Things are going well there. DOT is meeting its targets in terms of number of miles paved and getting the good, maintaining the roads in good and fair condition that are there, and minimizing the number that are in poor condition. Bridges, they're working to reduce the number that are on the red list, and that number is going down. DOT has extensive set of slides that they have available on their website with the 10-year plan that can give you some of the details. This kind of thing if you're interested. Also good, we're expecting federal revenues to come in for the transportation program, about 235 million a year. They assume sort of a flat level of funding. Traditionally, it's increased slightly every year, but to be a little bit conservative in their estimates going forward, they went with a flat funding expectation. Also good, turnpike revenues are growing at about 1% per year. This is lower than was previously expected, but it's still growing, which is important to maintaining that turnpike system. So,
They don't advance for us. They're really not.
yeah, they're
advancing
not
for anyone.
advancing for me.
We can just stay on the good.
Yeah,
You don't have to,
Clearly, the bad is not where we want to go.
What did they anticipate for percentage on the revenue fix?
there is. All right, I'm gonna stop the share and try that again since it's not moving for me.
question.
It was a
Yeah.
question.
Okay,
Let them focus, somebody to answer.
yep, sorry.
What was the projection for, turnpike RV in place?
I cannot recall that number exactly. Higher than 1%.
It was 3%.
3%.
There you go.
All right, for some reason, my slides are not advancing. We're going to back out of this presentation entirely and try.
Starting on, this works. Look, there's that. Oh, yeah, there's another. And cheats me the stuff ahead. It will.
All right.
Right? Oh.
Let's try one more time. What if you go back to where you had the series of slides on your lap? If you just picked. Yeah, we'll try this, see if this works.
Ah, you did it.
All right, did it change, for those of you on Zoom? Did you see, are you seeing the bat?
Yes.
Excellent. Excellent, thanks, Bill.
Probably doesn't want to see the back.
Okay, so the bat. Cost escalation on projects, inflation are driving up costs. The state is carrying a large number of projects. And too many of them that actually go to bid are only getting single bidders. Which is again, putting us at the mercy of those higher costs from the single bids. There's not a lot of competition happening, basically. As we said, turnpike revenue is growing, but not as fast as anticipated. So 1% rather than 3%. And turnpike operating costs are increasing faster than revenues. So again, we've got some inflation happening there. SB 367, which is the 4-cent gas tax that was put in place 10 plus years ago, I think now, 2014-ish. That money was going to paving. Now that money is entirely going to paying off the I-93 bonds. So that's about $20 million a year that was being put in paving and is now going to debt service between now and I believe 2034, 35, like that. Say the next 10 years.
All of it for the next 10 years?
Yep. And then it sunsets. So that 4 cents goes away once that debt's paid off. So, and also bad, there are no additional funding sources anticipated to be coming in. So, get flat funding. Or less.
What is the plan to maintain the roads in a workable fashion when traffic is increasing? Do they have a plan?
We'll get to that.
They're really ugly.
Just hold my breath, right?
So, the ugly. So this is where things really, we start to put numbers to this, right? So inflation rate is increasing from 3.7 to 4.4% per year. And that's the inflation rate that DOT uses as part of the 10-year plan to predict how much a project is going to cost 8 to 10 years out. That's adding $93 million in project costs to the existing slate of projects in the 10-year plan. DOT has administrative costs to carrying projects, and their rate has been 10% for a long time. They're increasing it to 12%. That's going to add another $47 million of costs. There are 22 projects that were expected to be completed but are not. And that adds $130 million to the new 10-year plan, just because those were expected to be off the books and dealt with, but they aren't. So, and then the general project cost escalation and inflation that we're seeing for the remaining projects is adding $130 million to the total. So DOT is estimating that they're about $400 million over programmed in the 10-year plan. So, yeah. So that's a lot. So their strategy that they put forward, and it has been endorsed by Gassett at their meetings in July and August. We'll be talking about this at the 10-year plan hearings coming up. Focusing on maintenance and preservation of the system and funding that at about $150 million a year, which is about what they currently are putting into it. They also want to shift $132 million over the course of the 10-year plan from projects to maintenance and preservation. So rather than building an improvement in a particular community, it's going to go to paving and bridge work. To do that, they need to reduce the number of projects that they're carrying in the 10-year plan. So they want to delay or remove about $300 million in projects statewide. And also remove the construction for Bow Concord and Manchester exit 6 and 7 projects, which are very large. The Bow Concord, I want to say, is in the 10-year approved 10-year plan for roughly $400 million, of which 200 million-ish is federal funding. My understanding is that DOT's estimates on that project are now closer to $800 million. So it's going up. Exit 6 and 7 is fully a turnpike project. But that is also like a $200 million set of improvements. So, you know, there's not enough money in the turnpike funds to pay for both of these or either of them really at this point. The other thing that they're proposing is that there are no new projects added to the 10-year plan, specifically no new RPC priority projects added to the 10-year plan. How does that translate? Well, first, let's talk about that. How did DOT sort of deal with this and deciding which projects are removed? They did an internal assessment where they classified their projects by merit and risk. And merit looked at how essential is this project? And then risk looked essentially at how much money have we already spent on this project? Because if they don't follow through on projects that they already spent federal funds on, they need to reimburse the federal government for those projects. So bigger the project, the more money that's been spent on it already, the more likely it is to stay in the 10-year plan. Where that tends to fall, it means that those projects in the outer years of the 10-year plan sort of bear the brunt of this because no work has really happened on a lot of them. So how does this translate to our region? Or I should say this, how does it translate to the state first? So again, as I said, removing Bow Concord, except for work, they're going to do some rehabilitation work on some of the red list bridges in that section, which is still, it's not cheap, but it's not making the improvements that Bow Concord was requiring. Removing construction for exit 6 and 7, I should say construction only for exit 6 and 7. They're going to carry that and the Bow Concord through the NEPA approval. So they're going to do the engineering necessary to understand what's needed, get the NEPA approvals, and then they're going to basically wait for more funding to come. 15 projects are going to be delayed. So they'll fund PE and right of way only and no construction at this time. 34 projects will be removed. This is statewide. And then no new RPC priority projects added for this round. For our region, out of those 15 projects being delayed, 3 of them are in our region. The first one is the FA 125 improvements between basically 101 north up through what is it? Epic Road, Petty Road, Route 87. Let's get confused, 87, 85. So yeah, so that section of road, they're going to continue to design it, but construction has been delayed outside of the 10-year plan. Hampton Falls, 43537. This is phase 3 of the East Coast, the Seacoast Greenway. This was our priority project 2 rounds ago. And it's that section of the East Coast Greenway through the Hampton Seabrook Estuary. So again, going to continue working on design, but construction funds are being pulled for that. Similarly, the 42609 in Seabrook, that's phase 2 of the Seacoast Greenway. That section in from the state line, Massachusetts through Seabrook and into Hampton Falls just slightly. That again, they're just starting work on the engineering for that, but the construction has been removed from the 10-year plan. So out of those 34 projects being removed from the 10-year plan, 9 are in the RPC region. Some of these, and I'll just kind of touch on each of them individually, but a couple of them are actually, you know, it's not necessarily that they're going away entirely, but they're sort of being rethought a bit or reconsidered. Hampton, there's 2 projects in Hampton. First is the 101 interchange with US 1 project that was added to the 10-year plan, I think 3 rounds ago now. That was not necessarily an RPC priority, but we felt it was an important project. And it was added out in the, I think or I think it was the executive counselor at the time, wanted that project added. Ashworth Avenue Complete Streets project in Hampton, that was one of our priorities last cycle. So that's being removed entirely. Kensington 150, 107 intersection improvements. That was a priority 3 rounds ago from the RPC. Newcastle Drive bike shoulders on 1A and 1B. Again, this was a priority actually 4 rounds ago, so it's been in the tenure quite a while, but it's being removed now. This Northampton Drive 42312D, this is being removed, but my understanding is most of the work on that project is actually been done through the main overall parent project here, the 42312, and through district work. So this D project is sort of been deemed sort of extraneous at this point and unnecessary. Portsmouth, the Portsmouth Circle Engineering Study. This was one of our priorities from the last 10-year plan cycle. Seabrook, this US1 expansion, in order into Seabrook there. That was a priority from again, about 4 rounds ago, the 10-year plan. This project was a little bit unique in that Seabrook had indicated they were going to pay 50% of the construction costs. And so yeah, that was part of the reason it got kind of squeezed in, was because Seabrook was willing to pay for 50% of the cost. So it kept the cost down a little bit, or theoretically kept the cost down a little bit. And then finally, the Southampton, maybe not finally, but Southampton Hilldale Avenue Bridge. The construction on that has been pushed out to 2037. So it's just being delayed. It's not entirely going away because it is a red list bridge. It's just being pushed way out beyond the horizon in the Tater plan. And then finally, the signal coordination on 108 in Stratham. That project is going away, but not really. We talked about this as part of Amendment 1 in June, although that was at the annual meeting and that was very quickly covered. It's basically the scope of this project is being incorporated into a statewide signals project. So the work will still be there, but this particular project is being crossed out. And then money was added to that statewide signals project to cover the Stratham work as well. So additionally, there's a number of projects that are currently in the 10-year plan that are anticipated to be completed. So they're leaving the 10-year plan, but not because they're being discontinued, but because they're supposed to be done. Some of them are underway. For instance, the sound walls on I-95. We almost get there. And so Seacoast Greenway, first segment of that was completed. This next section on the northern from the Northampton town line through the center of Hampton, we had started construction this year, maybe it's early next year. We have some bike shoulders in Newcastle that's anticipated to be completed. This right turn lane on Arboretum Drive in Newington, or inside this is the Peace Development Authority. That's anticipated to be completed. Forward in Northampton on Route 1. Beverly Hill Road sidewalks that we mentioned earlier with the TIP amendment. Full of railroad crossings, Street and Maplewood Avenue in Portsmouth, I-95 sound walls, some bridge painting, a couple of bridges, or let's see, one bridge in Seabrook and one intersection improvement. And then finally, the replacement of the 1A bridge between Seabrook and Hampton. So some major projects getting completed and coming off the 10-year plan for good reasons. So we've got some actual dates for the GASC hearings that are coming up now. There are 4 that are actually in the RPC region. Starting next week over in Brentwood at the Rec Department at 6. Then on October 1st at the Hampton Beach Shell at 6 again. October 16th at Plastow Town Hall. So it's 6 o'clock. And then here just up the street at the Greenland Central School at 5 p.m. on October 22nd. For some folks in the region, maybe closer to go to the meeting at the Dairy Town Hall, the 29th of September. That's a little bit later start at 7. And then folks on this end maybe want to go to Durham or Dover. Those are both both meetings are on the 23rd. One is at 10 in Durham. And then at 1 at Dover City Hall. So those are the ones that are closest to the region. The gas hearings will cover the same format as we have in previous years, where DOT is going to do a roughly 20-minute presentation. RPC will give a short 5-minute presentation-ish, and then there'll be time for public comment. That's all I have for the presentation, but I'm going to continue to talk here for just a minute. So, you know, we've been kind of going back and forth about what we want to talk about when it's our turn up there. Since typically one of the things we talk about is, here are our priorities that are being added to the 10-year plan. We can't do that this time, but I think we're going to largely keep to the same presentation. You know, cover who we are, what we do, what our job is as part of the 10-year plans. Here's what we prioritize. So the question was asked. About the status of the 125 at South Road project in Brentwood. And it was to get into that. DOT did build the short and medium term improvements that were proposed as part of the road safety audit. We had proposed as our priority for this round, adding the long-term improvement, which was construct a roundabout at that intersection. So our goal was to get it added this round. It's not going to get added. So it really doesn't have any status, right? Theoretically, it could be funded through the HSIP program, which funded the short and medium term improvements. But there's no sort of, I haven't seen any indication that that's actually happened. So right now, I would say that that project isn't happening.
So, kind of two follow-ups on, well, one follow-up on that, then I had one sort of related question. So for those, and this is a question that we're kind of talking about amongst ourselves and Brentwood, but in terms of next steps for us, I mean, certainly we plan to attend the GASSET hearings. One of them is in Brentwood, but I guess I'm just looking for some advice on like, what do we even say to them? Because like, this is a big priority for us, and it's, you know, it's pretty devastating to just have it cut. And, you know, we'll say that to them, but like, I'm just trying to get my kind of arms around what like next steps should look like there in terms of us, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good question. that there's not really an answer to.
I understand.
When, I mean, my personal sort of expectation is that, you know, in 2 years, we're not gonna see anything different. The funding isn't going to have changed substantially. And so we're gonna be stuck in the same spot with no money to add new projects. So I think that kind of, if it's been following the theme, this is a revenue issue. Unfortunately, the people in the room at the Gassett hearing aren't necessarily the people that need to hear that.
True.
So, I would encourage folks to encourage their local legislators to attend these hearings in the communities, just to kind of hear what's going on and understand that, DOT is doing yeoman's work dealing with limited budgets, limited staffing, hiring freezes, all those things. But there's only so much that they can continue to do without cutting. And we've hit that point. In the past, we've been able to kind of string things along, stretch things out. But I think they've hit the point where they can't do that anymore and maintain the system. Right? So a choice has to be made. Their choice is let's maintain the system at the expense of pretty much everything else. Right? Although, there are still programs like HSIP, the TAP program, CMAC program, which would support funding, smaller scale safety improvements or bike pedestrian improvements, transit kind of work, in some cases. But otherwise, I think we're if we're looking for just projects to get added to the 10-year plan, kind of out of luck, I think, for the time being. And that makes it tough that, especially you've got a demonstrated safety issue in Brentwood at that intersection, 2 fatalities there. The improvements put in so far are going to make some headway into preventing that from happening in the future, but it doesn't do anything for people who need to cross 125. In fact, it maybe makes it even a little more dangerous for people trying to cross 125. So, long term, we need to be thinking about that sort of thing. We will continue on our side of the equation here to try to do the data analysis and the work to identify the needs that are out there. Just in the regional safety action plan, we're going to keep that up to date and updated to kind of understand where the safety issues are in the area. But that's as far as we can take it without money. Without the other limitation I think the state has is there's 0 state funds that go to anything other than some paving and bridge work. There's no matching funds for federal projects. There's no matching funds for, say, Brentwood wanted to put in for Safe Streets and Roads for All grant for that intersection. You would need to come up with $1 million or $2 million in match funds because the state can't at this point. So, yeah, I'm guessing Bill might have some things to add to that.
So, if I can, I know it sounds like it's a pretty open conversation. We spent a lot of time, so my time has been spent. I know I don't usually come to this committee meeting. Usually it's Glenn Davison from my staff, and we gave Glenn a night off because he's been spending way too many hours trying to figure out the exact type of questions that you're asking. But we spent most of the time over the last 2 weeks with all of the regional planning commissions, listening to TACs, listening to policy committees, listening to what people have to say. And the same question comes up again and again and again. So where we can take it 1 or 2 steps further, and we're going to, as part of the public hearings, the department is ready to support a toll increase on the turnpike system. Doesn't help Brentwood and 125. It's be it not being on a turnpike system, but we're ready, and we have already started talking about it with the executive counselors, with the Gassett members, about what if we talk about a toll increase. We were meeting with Councillor Lyot Hill this afternoon. She represents Concord West and North through Lebanon's very strange district, the way she's set up, but she doesn't have any existing except for Concord. She doesn't have any turnpike system in her district, but she wants to have the conversation about turnpike revenue in all of her meetings, whether it's in Concord or whether she's up in Bethlehem. $1 at most of the mainline tolls will get us out of the issue that we're talking about, that Dave presented about Bow Concord and exit 6-7 in Manchester. It will also make sure to reinforce, as Dave just said, there's zero cash in state money that goes into our projects. We are supposed to match all of our federal funds with 20% cash, and we have $0. The legislature hasn't approved anything for us in the last 10 years or so. We rely on Turnpike capital funding to create what's called toll credits. That is a funding mechanism. It's a gimmick in some people's words, but that gimmick has supported our 20% match on federal aid projects for the last 10 years. If we don't see an increase in the toll structure in New Hampshire, that toll credit gimmick or funding source is at risk. The councilors are not ready to support a toll increase. They're ready to hear about it, and they're ready to hear about it from the public. What has not been talked about in any of the GASSET meetings that we've had so far is gas tax increase. But I can tell you that every other regional planning commission, TAC meeting or policy meeting I've met with people in the last couple of weeks, people are starting to talk about toll increase. Will it happen this session? I don't know. It won't happen because of GASSET meetings, because GASSET doesn't have control over gas tax. GASSET, the Executive Council has control over the toll rate that's established. The Executive Council and the Legislature have to dance this dance together when you talk about toll rate versus discount rate for tolls. The Legislature has authority over what the easy pass discount rate is, for instance, or if we want to charge through traffic in Hampton that's from Massachusetts going straight to Maine, if we want to charge out of state people higher tolls than we do in-state license plates. But many communities are starting to have a conversation about gas tax increase, because as Dave alluded to earlier, we have a revenue problem. We have a turnpike toll structure that across the board hasn't been updated since 2007, I believe, was the last statewide toll increase in the state. Hampton was increased more recently than that. And what we did with that increase in Hampton is we bought a section of 95 from the Portsmouth traffic circle up to the main state line. We bought that section of highway from the federal highway system. The federal highway was paid back for the cost of that system. We were able to also receive about $100 million of revenue to help support our 10-year plan projects, and the toll increase in Hampton supported and continues to support that entire section of I-95 now. So there's some creative things that can be done. We start that conversation. If people want to have that conversation, if they really want to talk about what else can we do, is there something to help? The conversation needs to start at the GASSET hearings, but if there is anything else other than a turnpike revenue conversation to have, it needs to continue after GASSET, and it needs to continue in the legislature, in the House when a 10-year plan gets there, in the Senate when a 10-year plan gets there, in the governor's office when the 10-year plan gets there. We don't know whether that will actually be an actual conversation that happens at the hearings. Many of us hope it will be. If there isn't, then the next question is the list of delays or cuts that Dave walked through. We don't know if they're the right ones. So if we screwed up, we're human, we don't know all the circumstances for all the projects. If it becomes an issue of we can't afford to do everything and you pick the wrong project, damn it, in my community, help us find out ways to swap other projects out. The councilors are all open to that right now. They're not committed to funding the projects that we've recommended be funded in a 10-year plan. If there are better ones, if there are ones that make more sense to be funding, then we're open to swapping projects as well.
Thank you, Phil, for that. And I'm gonna, here's one comment.
Okay.
I'd just like to announce that I've driven up into Maine for my work many, many times, and the toll that is in Maine has always been like twice what the toll is on I-95 in New Hampshire. So I think we need to at least minimum match our neighbors, but that's just my soapbox. Al?
I'm on board with that, because Bill kind of stole my thunder. That was my next question, to increase the tolls in New Hampshire. Well, like you said, we would pay the cheapest between Massachusetts and Maine. And all the volume that comes up during the holidays of 95, all that revenue that comes in through the state.
Or
and we're paying
skiing, all of my
skiing all year round, and we're paying the lowest. You know, and we increase, and then like in all the other states, $4, $2 or $3, whatever it is, we can kind of bring our budget up a little bit to pay for some of these projects.
Well, we all need to show up at GASSET meetings and talk about it.
Just one very quick logistical question about GASSET. Obviously, us and a lot of our community one in Brentwood because it's in our town. I thought that there was one tomorrow in Greenland. Is that?
It got canceled.
It got canceled. Okay.
It was canceled, yeah. Counselor
one.
Stevens asked us to delay that for a little bit so she could have some more time to be prepared.
Gotcha. So I plan to attend multiple ones. I want them to get sick of seeing me.
Yeah,
Usually
no,
it only
you need
takes
to
one
do that.
visit. Yeah, so.
Anyone who, I mean, because I've actually done this, we did this with the Sound Walls for Portsmouth, and we showed up and we just kept talking about it, and it eventually they'll find a way if you keep talking about it and know it's important to the community.
And if you can't make it in person, all of the hearings will be broadcast like tonight. You're using Zoom, we'll use Teams to do all of the meetings. And there'll also be an online comment portal for people to be able to submit comments directly to us through an app that will be linked on our 10-year plan webpage within the next couple of days.
Other comments or questions?
I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on it, but similarly in Portsmouth, the traffic circle got pulled off of there. And we're certainly gonna advocate for that. I mean, it's a regional issue, it's a safety issue, it's a traffic backup issue.
I've already talked to one city councilor who's planning on showing up to talk about it.
So
I mean, I think
I
that's
think we all have projects like that.
from a safety perspective, that the Portsmouth Circle is right up near the top.
Yeah.
Of the spots in our region that are more dangerous, and there is less fatalities and more just sheer volume of crashes that are occurring there. So.
Anything else? Anyone else?
Take the last word.
Sure.
No, I would just encourage everyone, when you do go, first of all, give legislators to go, as Bill said. Like, call it what it is, call it a revenue problem, and don't be afraid, if you support a gas tax.
Say
You're supporting increased toll, you should support both, we really ever want to get out of this.
Yes.
So, I'd be a communist and say for a penny on the dollar for a sales tax. Out there too, on top of it all, you know, get chased out of the room.
Let's just go after gas and tolls right now.
But do it, that's what needs to be said.
Dennis didn't want you to have the last word because now he wants to talk. Go ahead, Dennis.
So what's the difference between the gas tax and how it's allocated and the toll tax? And I understand that the toll tax is only for the major highways and turnpikes, but the gas tax would apply to all state roads.
Yes, exactly.
So the gas tax in a way is probably better than a toll, but at the same time, we have a lot of vehicles out there such as electric vehicles, which are using the roads but aren't paying any tax.
The tolls on the turn pay for just improvements. I mean, it's a turnpike system, so that's the major highways, 95, 93.
Right.
And if you ever turnpike, Spalding Turnpike, gas tax pays for all the, provides funding. It doesn't pay for it, but it provides funding for all the other roads. And then there was a bill that I think was signed into law a year ago, or maybe 2 years ago now, that increased the registration fees on electric vehicles to kind of offset the fact that they don't pay.
I remember something, I didn't know if that had passed or not, but.
I believe it did, yeah.
Thank you. The other part is what I'm trying to get to is a project like the Portsmouth Traffic Circle, which is a significant exchange of transportation systems. Is that being funded by the turnpike tolls, or being funded by the supposedly like gas tax? Oh, excuse me, like a gas tax.
We had proposed to study what's needed there using 10-year plan funds. But my understanding is that the circle itself may actually be part of the turnpike system. You don't.
Well, cause I-95 used to go up where the bypass is, right?
Right.
Before the high level bridge was built in the seventies, so.
My point is, be careful what we ask for, because we might be getting the wrong thing we're looking for.
Right, but let's keep in mind, they're canceling all the 10-year plans because they don't have enough revenue to maintain.
We need to increase.
If we increase the toll and they can maintain
Yeah.
and we added gas
I-
tax, we might actually get ourselves out of this hole.
I totally get it.
Yeah. No, thank you though for your input. Anyone else? Last chance, or I'm gonna hit the gavel and we're gonna go home. Because I don't think anyone has anything else. You don't need any more motions, right?
Tim,
I-
Tim, is this your last meeting?
It's this last commission. Go ahead. Bill, you wave your hand.
Please clap.
Oh, he's clapping. See, you even got online clapping.
Congratulations.
All right, we are adjourned. It was 20